Welcome to another episode. No Cap Reacts. I'm your man Bailey. Let's get this started. Balenciaga's on my feet, stay in. Oh boyfriend, I got these pointers, neck and wrist, stay in. Oh boyfriend, I'm always fresher than the rest, stay in. Oh boyfriend, since '96 I'm in this game, stay in. Oh boyfriend, Balenciaga's on my feet, stay in. Oh boyfriend, I got these pointers, neck and wrist, stay in. Oh boyfriend, I'm always fresher than the rest, stay in. Oh boyfriend, since '96 I'm in. Welcome to another episode of No Cap Reacts. I'm your man Bailey, aka Mr. Go Get. Yeah, it's been a minute. We live on a Saturday afternoon. We're doing something a little different, but this is how the channel actually started out, where we do live interviews. And today I got a good one for you. It is living a poly lifestyle. A lot of people have questions. A lot of people have brought this up. These are some things that a lot of people actually enjoy. And I figure what I'll do is grab someone firsthand, probably a couple of someone's firsthand, to actually tell you about the lifestyle. That way, you don't have to really ask questions because I'm going to do it for you. You can get some insight. You can see how people's thought process is, their lifestyle is, and at the end of the day, stop judging people. We all about having fun, living life, and being the best version of yourself. So let me go ahead and bring my guest on. You're live, sir. Yep, so click the link. You're going to see you are audio and video. You want to turn the volume down on your phone because it will feed through. So while we at it, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and make sure you subscribe to the channel. This young man happens to also be an artist, but I will have all of his links. He will also give you all of his links as we go through this process. Usually, there's a couple technical difficulties that comes along. All right, give me just a second. I'm going to send you another one. Now, stay on Messenger. I'm going to send you another link. Try it now. Yep, I can hear you. But your video's not up. Yeah, so you would have to come back to the Facebook. I don't think on a phone you can watch the video and be on video at the same time. Unless you have another device. Most people will get on their tablet with the link and video from their phone. All right. So tell us your name, who you are, where you're from, what you do. Oh, well, maybe I should have actually flew you out here. I'd have had in-house tattoos. How do you and you've done it for how long now? Yeah. Rules, rules, rules. Always. All right. So, how did you personally get into polygamy?
And she identified as polyamorous and pansexual, and that was all new to me. I didn't know what to make of it. So we opened up for discussion, and what I had learned from that was that I've been polyamorous way longer than I thought I had been, but I grew up in a conditioned society where monogamy was the rule, and um, at some point I wasn't like committed to any one relationship, but had several relationships happening, and there was no honesty between the relationships. So like I may have had like five or six girlfriends that I was seeing, but they didn't really know about each other. Uh, and it felt creepy, it felt gross, it felt I mean, I grew up with that idea like, you know, there's players out there, you're playing the field and you're being, adopted that terminology of pimping, right?
Yep.
So what I discovered is take away the sneakiness of it and bring in the honesty of it. I open myself up to an authenticity of myself. And so I prefer having multiple partners that A, know about each other, and B, are willing to hang out with each other. Um, but it's been kind of a weird platform. So one of the things that really stuck out for me was when I was dating Bliss, she was part of several. If my phone alarms go off, I am sorry. I don't know how to turn those off right now.
Not a problem.
She was part of a quad of like three or four other partners that were all living together up out of state. And she asked me to take her to the train station, and she was going to go visit them. And I thought that was fantastic. And then when she left, I experienced supreme anger Like I was jealous. I was so jealous. But I realized like I'm the new person to her. Like those people had been around and established in her life.
Mm-hmm.
So it really gave me this moment, this awareness to understand like yin to yang, good to evil. There's always a negative to a positive or vice versa. So what is the polar opposite of jealousy? Like there has to be something else and a pathway. There has to be an emotional pathway that's the opposite of jealousy when that arises. And I looked it up, and what I found was a whole bunch of stuff on this term called compersion. Not sure if you've heard of it. Compersion comes out of it originated out of like the late 70s, out of this poly commune in Northern California. And if you take the principle of compersion into your daily life, it doesn't have to necessarily be specific to relationships that are romantic. It can be your work relationships, your friend relationships, so on and so forth. And what compersion is being authentically and truly happy for someone in your life who's making a decision to follow something, to follow a decision towards happiness that doesn't involve you. So a partner who's seeking the company of another partner for their own happiness, but I'm not invited. My job is to express that happiness for them, that they are moving forward. Well,
That's
someone
me.
in. Yeah, yeah. So expressing, just being truly happy for her that she was gonna seek the company of those people because for whatever reason, whether it was already established or she's seeking some other fulfillment in life that maybe I can't provide in that moment, or whatever, you know. Uh, and that really opened my eyes to a baseline for polyamory. Uh, because I've been so tunnel driven with this pursuit in tattoo uh, and getting an apprenticeship and then laying my foundation and then really tunnel vision on the financial aspect so I can get back to Oregon to be a better provider to my son. I really haven't had a lot of time for multiple relationships. I do have a partner who she and I are both poly, but we haven't invited anybody else into our relationship, which can be struggling for me for many reasons. Triggers it triggers that feeling like, am I just stuck in another monogamous relationship?
Yeah.
Which I struggled with a long time with. Once I discovered I was poly, it wasn't like I had some friends like saying, "Oh, I've done the threesome thing. It's just a phase." Like, I don't. That's not how that works for me. Like, it's not about the sex for me. It's about the companionship, and it's about the building of a unit, the building of a family, the building uh, of your kingdom, so to speak. And what I found myself doing is getting, for the longest time, for several years, getting involved with women who were uh, open to me being poly, but they themselves were not. And in any relationship, if as you might be aware of, like there comes stress moments, and you have to talk them out. And so if I would talk to my other partner about my other partner, the one who was not poly would say, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to know about that. And it was like this stuck in a corner. And it was really about like, that's not really poly at all. That's just me having relationships with multiple people, and it's not cohesive. It's more stressful. I also found that in relationships, I don't function well with open poly. So I'm a straight male, which means I'm 98% attracted to mostly all women.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and uh, and I like women who like women. And
So you are a typical male. Let's just say that.
I'm a cisgendered male. Yes, I'm a cisgendered male. I'm not. I, there was some bisexuality back when I was a teenager. briefly. The reality, though, is that I was losing my train of thought here for a second. Being partnered in open relationships, meaning having multiple girlfriends that don't want to interact with each other or whatever, what that did was it invited a lot of risk, a lot of health risk. Too many avenues where bugs can come into the relationship, whether that's STIs or whatever funk, right? And it more room for error, more room for lying, um, especially if one of my partners in that scenario in an open relationship is also open and they're seeing somebody else that I don't know about who's seeing somebody else that I don't know about, and it's not necessarily about control, it's about open communication.
It's
And I
safeguarding
think
yourself. It's the open communication. It's making sure that everybody's on the same page.
and it's hard to do that when it's an open relationship and you've got maybe someone down the line just wants to say the quick lie so that they can get their nut off or whatever the case may be. Like I was a part for a long time, several years. I was a part of this community that is across the globe, and it has little chapters in every city. It's sex positive Portland. There's sex positive. I think it started in LA. There's in any major city. There's a sex positive community. I know one of the founders. She's amazing. It's a great community. They do events. So like there'd be level 1 to level 4, different parties, different events, whether that was social outreach or private groups, private parties. Uh, if it was a level 1, it was more like a all your clothes on, meet and greet, having a barbecue. If it's a level 2, maybe there's optional shirts, little extra touching, all the way up to level 4, where it's pretty much anything goes. And it all started before, when you start in level 1, it's the primary basis is a whole lot of workshops on consent and what consent looks like. And so when I started understanding myself as poly, I found this group through the website called Meetup, which is not a dating site. If any of your followers or viewers are new to Meetup, it is basically an online platform where you can connect with other people who like doing the things you like to do. So I am a percussion player as well. So I play a djembe and a cajon, and I used to play congas, and I love drum circles. So I would seek out like drum circles in Portland. And in finding sex positive Portland, I typed in sex because I like sex. And it connected me with this group, and it was a bunch of different workshops. It wasn't actual sexual, it was workshops about how to have discussions around sex, what types of sex, what kind of kink, what kind of stuff, right? And I got to meet a lot of really cool leaders in sex positive Portland, in the Portland area. Um, and at some point, if you wanted, you got to host your own workshop, whatever. And that was kind of my intro to expanding my the sexual revolution within my own body, I suppose. Um, I don't even have my partner that's with me. She's in the other state right now. She's working on a few things business wise, and we'll come together here probably hopefully soon. I don't know. But I learned through a lot of trial and error what works for me, and what works for me is not open poly. It is closed poly. So I prefer having a couple different partners that I live with, or work in a tight knit family style with.
So here's a question: with having that type of lifestyle and having multiple women like that, is there ever a time that the ladies actually don't get along?
Yeah, that's the same for any relationship. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be some sort of disagreement at some point with somebody, you know. We can't get along 24 hours a day. It's as much as we wish life was the realistic rainbow of all emotion. I mean, there are things that come up, and I think the fundamental aspect to really push through that is, you know, we come back to regular like communication boundaries. Working with nonviolent communication, being able to, if frustrated, taking those deep breaths, maybe saying, "Hey, I need a timeout," whatever it is, and not as a third person in the relationship or partnership, not taking sides necessarily, but playing playing an observant role in offering insight when needed.
All right, so as a man and a male, I understand the action of close poly. Most men, at the end of the day, do not want to share their women. Okay, how hard has it been to find a woman that is okay with sharing you with other women?
Um, that I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of conditioning involved that needs to be broken down sometimes. Um, Something you said actually triggered something in me that I want to touch on real quick, and that is, um, on all sides, understanding that we are no one's property. Like you had meant, and it's just a simple uh, terminology. Like my women aren't mine; they're theirs. They're their own people, right? So I don't, even in partnership, even in it's the weird thing about marriage to me is like marriage all the way back to when it all started was a thing of ownership, and I don't own any of my girlfriends. When I have multiple girlfriends, I try to give them the respect of their own individuality. Um, and should jealousy arise, we work it out. I mean, poly does not mean you're exempt from jealousy. It's a human emotion.
Can't
It
get rid
is
of it.
it's something that comes up. So it's how do you process through it? How do you work through that in a way that is healthy and not undamaging, right? Um, and finding finding people that are open and willing to do that on a regular basis and work through their triggers, um, is is a challenge just like any other relationship. I think it's important to note that um, poly people are still people. Like it's no different than a monogamous relationship. You just added another person in the mix. Like shit, the same same shit comes up, you know? So how do you work through it as a team?
All right, so I'm gonna go back. Let's go back and cover the monogamy aspect. So, in doing research, I am finding that monogamy is actually still less than 100 years old in our Western civilization. Since the beginning of time, monogamy did not exist, not in humans and or animal kingdom, even to this day. But here in Western civilization, that is something that is being more so forced upon us and pushed upon us by societal changes, initially in the rate or the realm of controlling taxes and making money per individual, because you could not tax a man with five wives when those five wives basically weren't taking, working, making money, or doing anything such as that. So the government actually stepped in and made that change, which kind of broke up households and homes and things such as that. How do you feel as only knowing this society, and initially monogamy being something that is offered, do you feel like you had to actually fight against your own personal DNA that men are meant to go out and conquer and have multiple women? How did you learn to deal with that internally?
I think I'm still there's still times where that comes up. Uh, like while it's still new in the West, it is hardwired into many of the conditioned families um, that we grew up, the generation, generational conditioning. It man, I was married for about 7 years before I discovered really wholeheartedly in my heart that I was poly, and we divorced under really sad and unfortunate circumstances. Um, and I realized afterwards when I got divorced that marriage is a business, period. That's all it, I mean, it really is.
It's a contract.
Maybe I sound jaded, but it
Mm,
is it is a business.
100%.
And there's a lot of money in that business if you come from the right angle. However, I I don't know that there's truly was like a lot of wrestling. The most wrestling internally that I had to go through with the difference between my conditioned monogamous upbringing and my new awareness of my poly soul was um, again um, discovering how to minimize the impact of jealousy and um, really do a lot of self work on my belief system. Um, I don't hate monogamy. It's just not me. Like, and I realize it's not a choice. Like, it really. I mean, to some extent, I could choose to be in a monogamous relationship, but over the course of time, it would be really exhausting, and it would be not fun, and I would hate it. It's not true to me. Um, and that was the real catch for me, was understanding that truth within myself. Like it makes sense why in my mid-20s, mid to late 20s, I was I wasn't like committed to any one person, and I had multiple partners, and the conditioning of my upbringing was not allowing me to be honest with myself or those partners about my other partners. Like I felt like it was shameful or disingenuous to have multiple partners, and I felt like I was lying to everybody, which it kind of was. And it was mostly, the most impact was I was lying to myself because I didn't know what poly was. That was the thing, is that's been around for generations and nobody's really talked about it because it's taboo now, right? um and I don't find it to be taboo. I find it to be dangerous to not talk about it. I find it to be I find it to be continuing the pattern to not talk about it. Like, we live in a fantastic time right now where um, uh, queer societies are coming more full force out in the open, um, and it's important to be able to talk about that stuff. Like, homosexuality has been around since the beginning of mankind. Um, multiple partners has been around since that time, right? So like, why are we trying to hide it or stuff it? Is it strictly out of religious control? Is it societal, like, business? Like, I don't understand oftentimes communities that I find myself immersed in where it's dangerous to talk about it.
So would it be safe to say that you feel and you're living more within your purpose and what is natural to you? And the reason that I say that is current society, let's take for instance, a man that has multiple women or children with multiple women today is called a baby daddy and he's looked down upon. But we can take it back all the way as far as New Old Testament Bible, Solomon, 700 wives, or no, sorry, 300 wives, 700 concubines with who knows how many children. Abraham, Isaac, Moses. We're talking the very beginning of the Bible all the way to the end of the Bible, and not just Christian or Christianity, but across every religion up until again 100 years ago, but only for United States and other countries. They still practice this. Their rapes are down, their domestic violence numbers are down, and things such as that. We in our society as men, for the most part, in order to live what is natural to us, because there's not very many men in this world that you're really gonna be around that say, yeah, it's my dream to be married. A man's happiest time in life is when he has built himself up in a manner to where he is attractive to multiple women, can have multiple women, and he doesn't have to lie about it. What do you think about that?
I think there's some truth to that. I think it's also dangerous to generalize. Um, there was a point in my life where I wanted to be married, and what the problem with that was that um, I was so hung up on some superficial stuff and the surface level stuff of wanting to be married, and my wife was extremely attractive. However, we all had our flaws, and um, we weren't honest in certain aspects of our relationship. Um, I think I think the Western culture of the United States um, thrives off of violence and and dishonesty, and it's sad. It's sad to be witness to it. Honestly, we see it in we see it in music, movies, and video games, and we see it out in the streets. Uh, we will watch movies of people getting completely brutalized and tortured, but we we draw a line to posting a naked photo of ourselves on Facebook. We have to cover the nipples, whatever whatever. Um, and it's kind of backwards. And I think as a whole, I honestly, I honestly feel that the American society, the US of America, I think that we are uneducated in how to be present with each other and in a way that builds each other up. We are so conditioned to tear each other down. Um, you know, there's two phrases that come to mind right now, and it's uh, hurt people, and healed people or healing people help to heal people. And I used to have a sticker on the side of my car that said, "To build or destroy, only you decide which joy." Um, and it's super tangible and fragile at the same time. Like, I, for the most part, have been a fairly positive, optimistic person. One of my greatest enemies, I suppose, in life was my grandfather. My grandfather was a mean man. Uh, one of the meanest men I've ever known. And I always craved a loving relationship with him, and it never happened up to his dying day. And I visited him in the hospital before he died, and I realized he was just a really sick man. He wasn't necessarily a mean man, he was just a sick man. Um, and fast forward to about a year ago, many, many years after he's passed along, I have started to exhibit some of that meanness. I have lashed out in anger, out of frustration, out of stress. And I don't see me when that happens. I feel like it's him. So my job is to tend to that the best that I can. And I think as a whole, we don't have that happening in across, coast to coast. I think there's pockets of communities that are trying, but I think ultimately we are a nation that is running on the fumes of our own triggers, and a huge shift is happening, and half of the people don't know what that is, or how to handle it. We continue to feed off of the patterns of the past, of generations past, and some of us are operating from triggers we may not even be conscious of. I don't know if this is getting off track or anything, but I think when it comes back to polyamory or alternative lifestyles, however you're vibing into that, it really comes down to educating yourself, and allowing, and then having the strength to then educate those closest around you.
Which that'll go on to my next question. Being poly, how has that affected friendships or family? Or, I mean, have you come out to friends and family? Do they know your lifestyle? And let's say, for instance, you're out with any of your partners. Do people look at you differently?
Yeah, I think to some extent people look at it differently. And it's not always a negative thing. Some of it's a curiosity. Um, you know, not everybody knows how to ask certain questions. Um, some people want to sweep the idea under the rug. Um, I I mean, if we go decades back, my mom used to ask me questions as a teenager that she knew that if the answer was what she didn't want to hear, uh, she probably shouldn't ask that question, because she's asking the question because she knows deep down it's what she doesn't want to hear, right?
Yeah.
And I remember telling her that. I said, "What if the answer is not what you are expecting, or not what you hope it to be? Do you still want to know the answer?" And she's just like, "Probably not." Um, like, it's interesting because I wasn't able to really have those conversations with my mom. My grandma, on the other hand, we could talk about all kinds of stuff. We could talk about from drug dealing to prostitution to whatever. Like, we could talk. My grandma was pretty funny. We could talk about getting high all the time. Like, my mom, not so much. And so I think for me, being poly, I get to insert it into conversation when the time arises, but it's not my job to just shout it to the world at every family function, so to speak. Like, um,
Let's say there's family reunion. Do you show up with all four of them? Or do you just take one, maybe two? How does that work out?
for me, I'd show up with all of them. Yeah, for me, like, I haven't been in that kind of a situation yet. So I am, as a result of several different choices in life, I've actually kind of disconnected from my birth family. So I'm aging. my family's aging. We all live in different areas now. So I don't really get along with my mom. My dad passed away in 2012. Um, I've got a couple of siblings that I'm close with one of, but not so much the other. And family functions just aren't. I don't get the invite to those. My ex-wife gets those invites. Uh, that's a that's a whole other bag of worms that is rough. But it is strange. So like, to kind of touch on your question, like one of the things that came about in right as I'm discovering the polyamory stuff, understanding that within myself, um, I hadn't quite come to understanding the terminology of it, but just knowing that there was something. Uh, my ex-wife, what led into the divorce was that she professed that I was possessed by Satan and wanted to take my kid and leave. And I don't know how to have a conversation that involves a demonic entity as a scapegoat that can't be present in physical form to to plead their case, right? So like you are gonna have those aspects in life in a lot of family dynamics in the West here, where because religion plays a vital role in many cultures and communities, um, however skewed that religious viewpoint might be, you're going to get um, some drawback. You're going to get that some pushback. If you walk into a Southern Baptist church and you know show up with your 4 girlfriends and 2 boyfriends, like that may not go over too well.
Now, okay, so that's that is so true, but at the same time, that totally goes against the entire message of what they preach in church, because you're supposed to be accepting of all, love all, but yeah.
I understand that. There is a vast majority within any and all congregations of any and all churches around the US, at least, that are extremely judgmental and turn a blind eye to that truth. You know, um, it's we're all flawed in some way, and I think it comes back to educating, but educating from a place of kindness and love instead of uh, I know better, instead of like educating from a place of ego or pomp. You know what I mean? Like, um, so I those educational lessons that I bring typically start slowly with like maybe like if tattooing, for example. Um, I might be tattooing a client and they talk about something because oftentimes my clients utilize their session as a form of therapy, which as a previous worker in mental health care, I invite that idea. Like, um, I've got the tools to help them work through some stuff while we're tattooing. And it's not like a full therapy session, but it does have its moments. And and I might drop like, hey, this here's why my chair, this appointment with me is safe. And I get to explain how I'm body positive, I'm sex positive, I'm polyamorous, for whatever terminology you might want to use, I'm a queer ally. Uh, there's all different avenues within that conversation where we can go. And I can do that same thing in conversation with family, or like, oh, how was your journey out in Wisconsin? I'll be like, oh, it was great. I discovered, I have love for another woman. And they may go, oh, what happened to your other girlfriend? Oh, I'm still with her. Like, then the meat starts happening. Like the meat and potatoes of that conversation start to formulate and bubble, and we get to either talk about it, or they can choose not to and walk away. Like, I'm not forcing my belief system, my lifestyle on anybody. Um, it really comes down to how open are you to be vulnerable about yourself, and how open and vulnerable, if you aren't a part of that lifestyle, or you're not poly and you're on the receiving end of that conversation, how open and vulnerable are you willing to be to listen?
So I'm gonna take this back to something you just said a moment ago, because the thing is, I think we're sold on the fact that we're flawed, because naturally, as we're born, and okay, so you have a child, as you grow up, the things that we consider flaws are the things that we're taught. You don't grow up wanting to hurt or kill. As children, children love to be naked. They're quick to take off their diapers, their clothes, and everything. We're actually taught that we need to wear clothes when at the end of the day, again, going back to the beginning of the time, we've actually never been conditioned or used to wearing clothes. For instance, common day TV show, Naked and Afraid, that is the truest version of who and what we are and the way we should be. And if that was and is the world we lived in today, would we truly be flawed? Would we worry about the things that we're conditioned to worry about today? Because a lot of the things that make us flawed are things that are taught to us. And then also, we're given the opportunity to live out those flaws. Because take away internet, take away TVs, things such as that, then you no longer have porn. You no longer have magazines. Like, technology within itself has created more flaws, chances to have flaws, and live within a very confined world where it's called technically control. But what they're actually controlling is the negativity, as opposed to the positive lifestyles that we would live if we didn't have the access to what is told to us as negative.
Yeah.
So being body positive, everybody would be body positive because we would all be walking around in the buff, which would lessen the thought process or the fact of that's sexy or the sexual, like, once you cover up a woman or a man, you're then sexualizing it. So they've actually sexualized us by using the coverings to then tell us, well, if you look at that person that way, it's wrong. But it's like, you actually created that. You conditioned me through, as a child, cartoons and TV shows to tell me that this was bad. When prior to that, if I had never done or been conditioned the way that I am, I would never had this thought process.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that the conditionings that we've all experienced and all have in some way, um, it didn't just formulate because an entity decided, like, oh, we're gonna put some subliminal messages in these cartoons. I think it's a domino effect that has started centuries and centuries ago. Here's a great example, and it's sad. This one might make you cry. Uh,
Okay.
my my 11-year-old son went and was hanging out with his friend the other day. They went to one of those uh, I don't know what it's called, where you like it's like a skydiving simulator, right? So you're like just in like this glass tube, but you're floating with a fan.
Yep, I know.
And they went to do this, and his mom and I were talking the other night, and she was telling me this story, and she said it was super heartbreaking, and I agree, 100% heartbreaking. So my son absolutely, he's got. I could listen to that boy sing all day long. Like, he has a miraculous voice, and I'm not just saying it because I'm his dad. Like, this kid can sing beautifully, and he absolutely loves watching musicals. Um, and they were talking about movies, and his friend's mom said something like, "Oh, well, you like musicals, right?" To my son, and Kai, Malachi is his name, and Kai says, before he can answer, his friend goes, "You like musicals?" Like all like in judgment, and my son stuttered for a second and said, "Well, I mean, kind of not really. I mean, I don't know." His mom was like, "What are you talking about? You love musicals." But it was like this moment of shame and embarrassment because his friend had a differing experience or thought around them. And I think that's where that condition comes from. Where like I really hope that he does not let that penetrate his aura so bad that he stops watching musicals and stops singing, because that boy has a gift, right? And my job is to help nurture that. Uh, and for whatever reason, his friend decided to pop off with that comment and like almost tease or make fun of him. I think even if we didn't have, if we were back to naked and afraid in living life on life's terms in a way that brought us back to those days, um, I think we'd still find that sort of feeling of shame or embarrassment with community when maybe somebody says, "What's that mole? What's that thing on you? What's that thing on your side there?" And you go, "Oh, it's nothing. It's not like you." I think we have this natural response to be liked and to please others in a way that makes us feel good, like increases that serotonin and dopamine, right? Um, so while my son has been undergoing other conditionings through society and school and all this, now he's receiving this peer pressure to dislike something he actually enjoys. Um, so my point in kind of sidestepping with this topic was that uh, I think the conditionings that we're facing in 2022 have they are generationally deep. They span like to like fourth and fifth, sixth and seventh great grandfathers and grandmas, right? Um, 7, 8, 10 generations ago, and it's been a domino effect where um, I used to not get so quick to trigger my anger, and for whatever reason, between my own stresses and such, certain conversations, I snap, and it's something I've been working on the last like 4 months. Really, really, truly seeing. I'm something I didn't share is that I'm also part of in Portland. There's a school called Rising Fire, and I'm part of the collective within Rising Fire, and it's a shamanic teaching that spans down to Peru, um, where my instructors will take some of the alumni or students and go down to Peru to immerse themselves with the Caro people in the mountains there and help rebuild their villages and do fire ceremony and things like that. Uh, and and that came up when I did my 2-year medicine wheel. Um, is a medicine wheel is a 2-year long workshop that every 3 to 4 months we did like a 4-day workshop. Super intense, very enlightening, very opening, but painful as fuck, man. Oh my gosh. Like I would get excited about these workshops and then I'd be like 2 days in, I'm like, I'm fucking done. Like I don't know that I can do this. And it was this one workshop that involved this thing called, um, oh, what was it called? Hold on. It was not soul drama. I can't think of it right now. It was this thing where we played out triggers in personified characters, and one was my grandfather, and I quit. it makes sense that it's now creeping up in my life because I didn't handle it back then. And I didn't want to have the conversation with the personified character of my grandfather and then play that role back to me, right? And I think that when we operate from a place of shadow, which is all of our behaviors that maybe that we don't actually see glaring at us, as soon as we understand them or see them in a moment to understand them, they're no longer shadow because you shine a big bright light on them, right? Then we're left to deal with it. We are left to understand it, learn from it, and heal it, right? But how many communities out there are being torn apart by different addictions, alcohol, drugs, because of the fear to look at those, to look at that pain that's residing deep in that you don't want to look at. You know, it took a long time for me to understand some of that pain that was derived from my childhood, and to address it. A lot of people don't want to address shit. They want to numb it. They want to ignore it and look away from it. And the other thing, I think, when we come back to poly, or anything like that, you're gonna get a lot of pushback, I think, from people who are operating from that angle of not wanting to look at stuff because of several factors. A couple that come to mind are fear and love, and sometimes that love can scare the shit out of you. Like it. So I had what I am saying this live on YouTube. When I was 13, I had a year-long romance with a boy that was my age, and I did not look at that for a long time. It was weird. It was a weird time in my life. I was, entering puberty. I thought it was something that boys did, but at the same time, it was something we didn't talk about at family dinner. I knew that,
Understandable.
I knew that my parents would my parents I grew up in a household where my parents would not openly talk about such things. They would chastise or get mad. Like I remember my dad telling my sister if she came back from college and was a lesbian, she'd have to find a new place to live. And that if I came back from the Hare Krishna seminar I wanted to go check out as a Catholic household, if I came back converted, I had to go find a new place to live. There was not a lot of tolerance when it came to like broadening our scope of the world. And my to this day, I still, wholeheartedly love my dad. I miss that dude every day. He was one of the greatest dudes I ever met, but he wasn't short of his shortcomings. Like there was some bigotry involved, and there was some misunderstanding. He had a sister who actually at my wedding came out as lesbian, and um he struggled with that because he loved his sister, but he did not love homosexuality. Like he battled so hard with but she's my sister, but she's gay. But she's my sister, but she's gay. Like I don't know how to love her, but I love her. Like, and it was really eye-opening to watch him struggle with that. And being able to teach my dad how to hug another man, that was a good thing that I experienced, being able to do that. And but also having those conversations, like she's still your sister. Like it doesn't matter, it's not your business who she loves, right? um and so fear and love, right? A lot of people have this fear that, and I don't know how to accurately articulate it. It's like this deep seated almost hatred that because I've come into a truth in my polyamory that I get to live more free than they do. And that scares them because they want that freedom, but they don't know, they haven't really gone through the trial and error of what they love or whatever the case may be. Or like, if you love me for who I am, there's almost like this conditioned or ingrained idea that you'll then be chastised and made a public target because you support me. There's this constant, it's like this pattern upon pattern of like being judged by communities. And I think that's where the whole reapproach to education comes into play.
Then I would say, going back to what I said earlier, it's safe to say that you are currently living your purpose because you understand who you are and what you are. And think that the majority of the people that are currently living today don't get to even express that, because us living our actual purpose isn't what is we're conditioned to do.
Yeah, I would agree with most of that. There's also there's so many factors that this these things aren't cookie cutter, you know, approach to life. Like it's not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. I think like um,
Now, in saying that, think about that thought process, okay? We did it for hundreds of years. It is literally our tradition to live the way you are currently living right now. But now, in order to live that way, you have to be totally educated on it. And it's complicated, yet it's the most natural thing to us. How does that make sense?
it it has its moments. So like what's coming to mind right now is that there are many factors at play that we're not all aware of. And as much as we're not aware of it, it's kind of the touchstone of it is that um, I have recently learned, like in the last couple years, that there are people in the world who don't hear their thoughts. There are people in the world who don't think before they speak, like on a fundamental daily functioning business. Like they just don't. There are people who for example,
Common sense isn't that common.
I have to remind myself every day of the things I have to do. That includes everything. Like there are people who get up about their day, go brush their teeth, get on, put their lunch together, go to work, boom, boom, boom. They don't even think about it. I actually have to remind myself that I have to brush my teeth. It's not because I'm forgetful or that I don't like brushing my teeth. It's because there's a I don't know if it's a wiring, if it's a DNA thing. It is a thing where um, it's not a habit. It's not a habit that has made a connection, right? So like this is why it's difficult for me to work out in a gym. I will go months and work out at a gym, like all the for months at a time. But if something comes up or interferes in my life, maybe it's a vacation or a weekend, like a camping trip or something. Um, I come back and I lose that momentum, and it just then next thing I know, it's been 6 7 months and I haven't gone to the gym, and it's not because I'm lazy. It's because I don't function that way. I don't. It's not a. It's nothing like that habit. It's not a habit forming thing for me. Where some people just do it, right? Um, and and the people that have that as a way of functioning, where they just do it, they don't understand how people like me don't just do it, right? So it becomes a like, what are you, stupid? How come you just don't do it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that can play over into my way is right, your way is wrong, sort of thinking, and that's where, excuse me, those dynamics in lifestyle come into play, where people don't agree with poly or any other version of any other non-monogamous relationships, any standard cis monogamy, right? Um, people people don't want, if they're not educated with it, they tend to think it's their way is better and your way is wrong, and therefore you are the bad guy. Um,
So let's pivot a little bit. Um, how do you spend your time equally with everyone, especially in a world where we know women love their attention, right? How do you equally spread out attention?
well, you can't just put it on women. I'm a man and I love attention, man. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, but they we know how that can go.
Divide my time. Currently, I don't have multiple partners. So, and my one partner is like 2 hours away. So I don't have that problem right now.
All right, well here's another question then. If you have more than one significant other, more than one partner, how do you effectively break up with them?
In a very healthy manner. It comes down to, I mean, that's a tough question. I mean that, and there's no one size fits all for that one. Um, I think each relationship has its dynamic, and you got to come to terms. You got to all sit down at the round table and have that discussion. What works and what's working, what's not working. Um, and are you just done, or is there a way to mend it? Are you willing to sacrifice in one area to meet another area? Um, is this a situation that can be rectified? Can it be healed? Can you bring in other tools to effectively balance it out, or not? Or, you know, and some relationships have the dynamic of the primary partner and the secondary partner, which is always kind of weird to me, because I don't want anybody to feel less than. Like, I have my partner right now, and should we bring in another partner, I don't want that other partner to feel like they are less. I want them to feel equal. So I I have a hard time considering my current relationship as my primary. Like, it's just a relationship, you know. um and I will have a better, more clear answer on that when that arises, when that when that situation arises. um
That is where I plan to do these with multiple people that are in different types of relationships within the polity world, because some people are going to have multiples and some people are, currently you're in a monogamous poly relationship, so it's going to be a different dynamic.
yeah, I mean, i I think it just, however, it really comes down to whatever works, where the least harm is affected, right? So we come back to nonviolent communication, talking things out, seeing what works, what doesn't work. And if I'm needing to break up with one of the partners, but they don't want to break up with the other partner, is that something I'm you know, willing to stand by? Because ultimately, I would think I would, but then, as a person who prefers the closed model of poly, does that work for me? it's something that I haven't actually encountered yet. So
Well, I will definitely say it was a pleasure speaking with you. Do me a favor, do us all a favor. Let us know your social media handles and where they can find you.
find me on Instagram at E Solari. Nothing of my personal life on there, just all tattoo stuff and art stuff. And then occasionally I post some stuff on Twitter at I think it's E Solari as well. That's about it. So.
And if they have any questions about anything poly, are you open to fielding those questions?
100%. Yeah. You can send me a message through my Instagram account. Just if it's specific to poly or anything, just reference this video that you saw the interview, and if you have some questions, I'd be more than happy to connect.
And don't be surprised if I hit you up and we do this again. This was fun.
Love it, man. I would love it for sure.
Well, I definitely appreciate your time, taking time out of your day to make this happen.
Man.
I'm always open, always looking to do something different, always looking to educate people on different lifestyles and things that actually happen in life. So this was good.
Make it out to your neck of the woods there. I'll give you a tattoo.
Definitely in the market for tattoos, that's for sure.
No.
All right, well, I appreciate you. I'm gonna hang up on the actual video, but I'll be messaging you back here in a moment, okay? I appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you guys thought about this one. There's going to be a couple of parts to this. We're going to have men, women, men and women. They won't all be videos. I'll have them live. It's good conversation, good education. If there's anything that you want to do, you want people to pay attention to or talk about, by all means, hit me up. You already know where I'm at. NoCapp Reacts everywhere. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even TikTok. And let's talk about it. This was fun. If you haven't already done it, well, let me help you out. How to do that the right way. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of NoCapp Reacts. I'm your man, Bailey, aka Mr. Go. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and well,